Hello there, my sweet ones. It's story time again. Snuggle down under your covers and find that perfect comfy spot. That's it. Let your body sink into the mattress, feeling all warm and safe. Take a nice deep breath in and slowly let it out. Feel your shoulders relaxing, your eyelids getting just a little bit heavier. Tonight, I'm going to take you on another magical journey with our friend Sinbad and his clever parrot, Yasmina. So close your eyes now, my darlings, and let your mind drift away as we sail to faraway lands of wonder and adventure. Listen closely as the story begins to unfold in your imagination. In a small coastal village, where the scent of salt and adventure hung in the air, young Sinbad stood at the edge of the dock, gazing out at the horizon, where the sea kissed the sky. Beside him, perched on a weathered wooden post, Yasmina preened her colorful feathers in the gentle morning light. "Do you feel it, Yasmina?" Sinbad whispered, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "There's something special about today. The wind is telling us a story." Yasmina tilted her head, listening to the whispers carried on the breeze. "Yes," she agreed, her voice melodious and bright. "It speaks of hidden wonders waiting to be discovered." Just then, a piece of parchment tumbled along the dock, dancing in the wind until it caught against Sinbad's foot. Curious, he bent down and picked it up. The parchment was old, its edges worn and frayed, but the markings upon it were clear enough. A map leading to a place called the Crystal Caves. "Look at this, Yasmina!" Sinbad exclaimed, holding the map so his feathered friend could see. "The Crystal Caves! I've heard stories about them since I was little. They say the caves hold treasures beyond imagination, gems that glow with their own inner light, and crystals that sing when touched by moonbeams." Yasmina hopped onto Sinbad's shoulder for a closer look. "It says here the caves are hidden behind the waterfall of whispers, on the Isle of Echoing Dreams," she read, her sharp eyes catching details Sinbad had missed. "We must go," Sinbad decided, carefully folding the map and tucking it safely in his pocket. "Let's gather our crew and set sail before midday." By noon, Sinbad's ship, the Star Dancer, was ready to depart. It wasn't a large vessel, but it was sturdy and true, with sails that seemed to capture more wind than should be possible. This was partly due to the whispered enchantments Yasmina had learned from an old sea witch who lived in a cottage made of shells at the edge of the village. As they sailed away from the safety of the harbor, Sinbad felt that familiar flutter of excitement in his chest. Every journey brought new wonders, new friends, and sometimes new challenges to overcome. But that was all part of the adventure, wasn't it? For 3 days and 3 nights, they sailed across waters that changed color with the moods of the sky. They passed islands shaped like sleeping animals and navigated through a forest of kelp so tall its golden fronds brushed the surface of the ocean, like the hair of sea giants. On the morning of the fourth day, Yasmina, who had been circling high above the ship, swooped down with news. "Land ahead!" she called, her wings shimmering in the sunlight. "And I can see a waterfall! It must be the waterfall of whispers!" The crew cheered, their voices carried away by the wind that filled their sails. As they drew closer to the island, they could all see it now, a magnificent cascade of water, tumbling down the face of a towering cliff, sending up a fine mist that created countless tiny rainbows in the air. "Drop anchor here," Sinbad instructed as they reached a natural harbor formed by curved arms of rock that embraced the sea like old friends. "The map shows we must approach the waterfall on foot." Soon, they were making their way through a lush forest where flowers whispered secrets as they passed, and butterflies, with wings like stained glass, fluttered from tree to tree. The sound of the waterfall grew louder with each step until finally they emerged into a clearing, and there it was, the waterfall of whispers, even more magnificent up close. "It's beautiful," breathed Sinbad, watching as water tumbled down the cliff face in a never-ending dance. "But how do we get through to the caves?" As if in answer to his question, the wind picked up, carrying the spray from the waterfall toward them. And within the mist, they could hear voices, soft, melodic whispers that seemed to form words just at the edge of understanding. "Listen," Yasmina said softly, closing her eyes. "The waterfall is speaking to us." They all fell silent, straining to hear the whispered message hidden within the sound of rushing water. And then slowly, the words became clear. "Those who seek the crystal light must prove their hearts are pure and bright. Stand before the falling waters as faith reveals what lies beyond." What does it mean?" asked one of the crew members, a young sailor with a voice that carried the lilt of distant shores. Sinbad thought for a moment, then stepped forward toward the thundering wall of water. "I think," he said slowly, "it means we need to trust and believe." With that, he took another step closer, and another, until he was so near the waterfall that the spray dampened his clothes. "Sinbad, be careful," Yasmina called, anxiety coloring her voice. But Sinbad closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and stepped forward, directly into the waterfall. The crew gasped, expecting to see him swept away by the powerful rush of water. But instead, something magical happened. The waterfall seemed to part around him, like curtains drawn back to reveal a hidden stage. And there, behind the cascading waters, was the entrance to a cave, its mouth glittering with tiny embedded crystals that caught the light in 1,000 different ways. "It's here!" Sinbad called back to his friends, his voice echoing strangely through the water. "The entrance to the crystal caves! You have to believe it's there, and then you can pass through." One by one, the crew members followed, each closing their eyes and taking that leap of faith. As each person stepped forward with trust in their heart, the waters parted, allowing them safe passage to the cave entrance. Yasmina was the last to pass through. her wings tucked close as she flew swiftly between the cascading sheets of water. Once inside, they all stood in awe at the sight that greeted them. The entrance tunnel was aglow with soft light emanating from small crystals embedded in the walls. As they ventured deeper, the crystals grew larger and more numerous, their light shifting through every color imaginable, painting the cave walls with living rainbows. "It's like walking through a dream," Sinbad murmured, his voice hushed with wonder. The tunnel opened into a vast cavern, so tall that its ceiling was lost in shadows above. Stalagmites and stalactites, formed not of ordinary stone, but of pure crystal, reached toward each other like yearning fingers. In the center of the cavern stood a still pool of water, so clear it was almost invisible, reflecting the crystal formations like a perfect mirror. "The map says the treasure lies at the heart of the caves," Yasmina reminded them, her voice soft in the magical stillness. "But which way is the heart?" asked another crew member, gesturing to the 3 tunnels that led away from the main cavern. As they pondered this question, a soft chiming sound began to fill the air, like crystal bells being stirred by a gentle breeze. The sound seemed to be coming from one of the tunnels to their right. "I think the caves are guiding us," Sinbad said. "Let's follow the music." The tunnel they chose narrowed as they proceeded, the crystal formations growing more intricate and delicate, like frozen lace. The chiming grew louder, more insistent, until they emerged into another cavern, smaller than the first, but no less beautiful. In this chamber, crystal formations had grown into shapes resembling musical instruments, harps, flutes, and bells, all seemingly played by the very air currents flowing through the cave. The melody they created was hauntingly beautiful, but there was a discordant note, as if something was out of place. "Look there!" Yasmina said, hovering near a crystal harp whose strings glittered in the gentle light. "One of the strings is broken." Indeed, a single strand of the crystal harp had been snapped, disrupting the harmony of the cave's natural music. "Maybe we can fix it," Sinbad suggested, approaching the formation carefully. As he examined the broken string, he noticed a fine crystal thread growing from the cave floor nearby. With gentle fingers, he carefully broke it free and, holding his breath, connected it to the broken ends of the harp string. The moment the connection was made, the discordant note vanished, replaced by a perfect harmony that seemed to make the very air shimmer with joy. And as the music swelled around them, a portion of the cave wall slid open, revealing yet another passageway. "The caves are testing us," Yasmina realized. "We need to restore harmony to find our way to the heart." The next chamber presented them with a different kind of puzzle. The floor was a mosaic of crystal tiles, each one lit from within by a different color. As they stepped into the room, their weight caused the tiles to dim slightly. "Don't move," Sinbad cautioned as he studied the floor. "I think we need to step on the tiles in a specific pattern." Along the walls were etched ancient symbols each one corresponding to a color on the floor. By carefully deciphering these symbols, Sinbad and Yasmina determined that they needed to step on the tiles in the order of a rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. "We'll form a line," Sinbad instructed his crew. "Each person step on the next color in sequence and hold your position." One by one, they placed themselves on the colored tiles. As the final crew member stepped onto the violet tile, all the crystals in the room blazed with light, momentarily blinding them. When their vision cleared, another doorway had appeared in the far wall. The third chamber was perhaps the most challenging yet. It was perfectly round, with a domed ceiling entirely covered in reflective crystal. In the center of the room stood a pedestal upon which rested a single clear crystal prism. Scattered around the room were small openings in the walls, too tiny for a person to pass through, but just large enough to admit beams of light. "I think I understand," Yasmina said, flying up to examine the ceiling more closely. "We need to direct light through the prism in such a way that it hits specific points on the ceiling." "But how do we control the light?" asked a crew member. Sinbad noticed small, movable panels beside each of the openings. "These must be shutters," he said. "We can control which beams enter the room." What followed was a delicate game of light and shadow. By carefully adjusting the shutters, they directed beams of light from outside the cave through the openings. Each beam struck the central prism, which split it into its component colors. Through trial and error, they positioned the shutters so that 7 distinct rainbow beams struck 7 crystal stars embedded in the domed ceiling. When the final star was illuminated, it began to pulse with a gentle light that spread to the others, creating a constellation effect above them. Then, slowly, the entire floor began to descend, like a giant circular platform being lowered deeper into the earth. "Hold on!" Sinbad called as they all braced themselves for whatever might come next. The platform descended for what seemed like a long time, finally coming to rest in a cavern that took their breath away. It was vast beyond imagining, with a ceiling so high and wide it created its own weather. Small clouds actually floated near the top, occasionally releasing gentle showers of rain that turned to mist before reaching the ground. And everywhere on the walls, the floor, hanging from the ceiling, were crystals of every size, shape, and color imaginable. Some were as small as teardrops, others as large as houses. They glowed with an inner light that seemed alive, pulsing gently like so many hearts beating in unison. In the center of this breathtaking space stood a crystal formation unlike any other. A perfect spiral staircase ascending to a platform where something gleamed with an especially bright light. "The heart of the caves," Sinbad whispered, "and the treasure." As they approached the staircase, however, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble. Crystal formations swayed dangerously, and small pieces began to break off and fall from the ceiling. "Something's wrong!" Yasmina cried, circling anxiously above them. From the shadows at the edges of the cavern came a sound, a deep, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate through their very bones. And then they saw them. Crystal guardians, humanoid figures formed entirely of living crystal. Emerging from the walls themselves, their faces featureless, save for two glowing points of light where eyes should be. Who disturbs the heart of the crystal caves? The voice seemed to come from all the guardians at once, reverberating throughout the cavern. Sinbad stepped forward, his heart pounding but his voice steady. I am Sinbad, and these are my friends. We found a map that led us here, to the crystal caves. We have navigated your tests with respect and care. The lead guardian tilted its crystalline head. Many come seeking the treasure of the crystal caves, thinking only of wealth and glory. What do you seek, young Sinbad? It was a moment of truth. Sinbad had been so caught up in the excitement of the adventure, in the joy of discovery, that he hadn't fully considered what he hoped to find. Looking around at the magnificent cavern, at his loyal friends who had journeyed so far with him, he suddenly understood. I seek wonder, he said simply. The chance to see beauty that few have witnessed, to learn secrets that the earth has kept hidden, to bring back stories that will kindle dreams in the hearts of others. That is treasure enough. The crystal guardian was silent for a long moment. Then, to everyone's surprise, it began to glow with a warm, golden light. For centuries, humans have entered these caves seeking to take, to possess. You are the first to recognize that the true treasure of the crystal caves is the experience itself, the wonder, the beauty, the journey. The other guardians began to glow as well, their light spreading throughout the cavern, making the crystals sing with harmonic resonance. Ascend the staircase, Sinbad, the guardian invited. See what waits at the heart of the caves. With Yasmina flying beside him, Sinbad climbed the crystal spiral, each step chiming softly beneath his feet. At the top was a small platform, and upon it, a crystal unlike any other, a perfect sphere that contained what looked like a universe in miniature, stars and nebulae swirling within its depths. The crystal of dreams, the guardian's voice explained from below. It shows each person their heart's true desire. As Sinbad gazed into the crystal, he saw images form within it, not of gold or jewels or fame, but of new horizons, of undiscovered lands, of friends gathered around a fire, sharing tales of adventure, of the look of wonder on a child's face, hearing those stories for the first time. The crystal of dreams reveals that your heart is true, the guardian said. You may touch it if you wish. Gently, reverently, Sinbad placed his palm against the cool surface of the crystal. The moment he made contact, a feeling of pure joy washed through him, the distilled essence of every moment of wonder he had ever experienced. Every beautiful sight, every act of kindness, every triumph of courage over fear. When he finally withdrew his hand, he found that a small piece of the crystal had detached itself, a perfect teardrop shape that glowed with the same inner light as the main crystal. A gift, the guardian explained, a memory of your journey that will never fade. When you look into it, you will always find the wonder you seek, and it will remind you that the greatest treasures are those that fill the heart, not the hands. Yasmina landed on Sinbad's shoulder, her eyes reflecting the crystal's glow. "It's beautiful," she whispered. As they descended the staircase, the crystal guardians bowed to them, a gesture of respect rarely granted to human visitors. "You are welcome to return to the crystal caves," the lead guardian told them, "for you have shown that you understand their true value." "Thank you," Sinbad replied, carefully tucking the crystal teardrop into a small pouch at his belt. "We will carry the beauty of this place in our hearts always." And so, my drowsy little ones, Sinbad and Yasmina returned home, richer not in gold or jewels, but in memories and friendship. The knowledge that sometimes the most valuable treasures are the ones you cannot hold in your hands, but only in your heart. The crystal caves had taught them that beauty, wonder, and the joy of discovery are gifts beyond price. Now, as your eyelids grow heavy and sleep beckons with gentle fingers, remember that adventures await in your dreams tonight. Perhaps you'll visit crystal caves of your own, or sail with Sinbad and Yasmina across starlit seas to new and wondrous shores. Tomorrow night, I'll tell you about the time they discovered a garden where the flowers could sing and the trees could dance under the light of 3 moons. But for now, drift away on the currents of sleep, my treasures. May your dreams be bright and beautiful until morning comes again.